All right, welcome to the podcast. We have on screenwriting guru, Dr. Format himself, Dave Trottier. Dave, thanks for being on with us today.
Oh, my pleasure, Jeffrey.
Oh, this is great. So obviously we're going to talk formatting, which is, I've got the man himself. I've read the Screenwriters Bible several times, loved it, and even strongly recommended it in my own book, The Guide for Every Screenwriter. That's how much I believe in it. It is
Oh,
just,
super.
yeah, it's just a foundation. There is a little bit of belief out there where it's art versus craft, right? So I believe that we're craftsmen, and we work towards engaging with producers, directors, and we write for them. We write to help display their voice in the script. But there's other writers out there that they're more artistic about it. They want to have their own voice in it and tend to not be so heavy on the formatting. So I want to kind of get your take on that.
Well, I think it's both art and craft. I think it's both. I think ideally, we use both sides of our brain. There's a critical side and there's the creative side, and
Yep.
they should work together in unison. And I think you can do that. I don't think formatting infringes on your creativity.
Very good.
The guidelines that we have in screenwriting, for example, there should be a beginning, middle, and end, those kinds of things. They are guidelines, and that you adapt, you creatively use those as best you can. One good example of that is Sleepless in Seattle, Nora Ephron. She uses the traditional romantic comedy format,
Right.
but she does it creatively. We don't have the characters actually meet in person until the end, but we do have them meet over the radio.
Yep.
And we do have the moment at the midpoint where one or both is starting to get interested or falling in love, and we do have the separation as a crisis where he's in one building and she's in another building. So that's the creative use of the traditional structure that screenwriters have used over the years.
Awesome. Well, I think that's great. I mean, yeah, you can strike the balance there. You don't have to lean too extreme to one or the other, and I love that. So you update the Screenwriters Bible regularly, and I think that's great because this craft or art that we work in, it's constantly evolving, almost more than generationally, right? And I find that it evolves through reduction. Like before, you had establishing shots all over. Before, sounds used to be capitalized. Now, not so much. And I really find that interesting. I just really want to get your take on how the art craft of screenwriting evolves over time.
Well, I think it begins with the fact that no one wants to read in this town. And therefore, producers and agents and other professionals will hand off your script to a reader, a story analyst, who writes a coverage. So essentially, we are writing primarily for a reader, because we have to get through the reader to get to the producer, or to the agent. And the reader wants readability. The reader is not interested in camera directions and technical directions. That's for the shooting script or production script later on, but wants it to flow easily into his or her mind and heart, because there's so much to read. And I think that's part of the reason of the evolution. I would describe it as we're getting further and further away from technical intrusions, and more towards simplicity and focusing on characters and the story, and making it an entertaining and interesting read for the reader, so that you can get to the producer and agent.
Wow, that is great insight, Dave. It's fantastic. One thing I found also when utilizing the reading script over the shooting script is I find that the theater of the mind is activated far quicker when you're not having to deal with camera directions, when you're not having to deal with cut
Yeah,
twos every other sentence, right?
that's exactly right. So those are kind of intruding on the thought process there, but I like to emphasize directing the camera without using camera directions.
Hmm.
So for example, in a shooting script, we have close up or angle on, a tear forms on her cheek.
Right.
In a spec script, a tear forms on her cheek. Well, that has to be a close up. You know, you're
Yeah.
directing the camera without using the camera direction. So the reader gets it. The reader's a professional. He
Yeah.
or she gets, you know, what you're trying to do there.
No, I think you're right. I think by having to force yourself not to rely on camera directions, it makes you cultivate and improve your voice as a writer, I find, especially writing like action blocks, things like that.
Improve your voice, and also helps you develop your visual eye, because you do want to see things and you do want to present things the way they will appear on the screen without going through those technical intrusions.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. Well, so since you mentioned shooting script, now my experience with a shooting script is I've, optioned my screenplays, I've sold them, and then the director takes them and then he goes and converts it into a shooting script. Have you ever heard of situations where writers have had to adapt into shooting scripts for a director before?
Well, if you get a development deal and are paid to write, naturally you'll write the script any way the producer asks, and it may be as a shooting script.
Yeah.
There are some producers that just simply may want to receive a script that has a little bit more of the shooting script quality to it.
Right. Right.
Hopefully, what you're hoping for is, after you sell the script, is that you're the one who's asked to convert it into a shooting script and, make the revisions that they're looking for.
Right.
They're in love with your script. Oh, we love it. It's the best thing we ever read, but we do want to make these changes.
There you go.
And you hope that you are the one that will make those changes. You want to be hired by them.
Yeah.
To revise your own script.
Right. And it's a whole new muscle to flex.
That's
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, let me ask you about this, because there's a trend growing in popularity lately, I've noticed, and it's the scriptment. And there's really no set definition for a scriptment as of now. I know it started with James Cameron back in, like, I would say the late 90s, but I see they're picking up kind of steam lately. What is your feeling on the scriptment? Do you like them? Do you go by them? Do you have a specific methodology for them? Do you not like them?
okay. And I missed the term. What did you call them?
A scriptment. So it's like the hybrid of a script and a treatment.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's trending a little bit. You'll see some writers and directors will do a scriptment,
Yeah.
and what they'll do is they'll focus more on scenes and less on dialogue, and you'll even have kind of
Yeah.
actors doing kind of improv situations.
Okay. And I have seen very few of these. This is kind of new to me.
Okay.
My reaction to it is, this is just another reason, this is because people do not want to read. And so how can we make it easier to read a script? Let's do a scriptment.
Yeah.
If I am a writer who excels in dialogue, I want to avoid that.
I agree.
If I am a writer who excels in narrative description, action that really grabs the reader and so forth, then I'm happy about that.
Okay.
And I think the key will be, okay, who am I approaching and how do they want to be approached?
Yeah.
What is it they want? So you may have to write in a scriptment. That is a great term. I've not heard the term.
Yeah, yeah. It's new. It started with Cameron back in the day. He did one. I think he did one on a treatment for want to say it was like a Spider-Man or something like that, but he wrote a scriptment, and then it kind of went along the wayside, and then starting to pick up trends. Now I'm seeing a little bit
Yeah.
more of them. And, just approaches in general change. Before you had treatments, now you have lookbooks, right? Now you have, full pitch decks and Bibles, and, people keep kind of trying to find the new way. You've got, sizzle reels, I mean, you just, all kinds of things. So,
And I would suspect, Jeffrey, that this is something. Scriptments are written more by established writers who don't need to break in with a full screenplay, but are already a known entity, and therefore, they can get a deal, a development deal, or sell just off of a treatment or a scriptment.
Yeah. They can leverage their name. They can leverage their brand. I think that's actually a really
exactly
good point.
right.
Very good point. So what kind of trends have you noticed lately with formatting? Have you seen anything changing or shifting in the ethos?
No, just a continuation of what we were talking about.
Okay.
That we want lean, readable, entertaining. And, it used to be 120 pages is the max. It still is, but they'd much rather see 110 or 105. In fact, I'm hearing a comedy 95 to 100 is great. A drama 105 to 110 is kind of more what we would like to see. So you want to keep that in mind. When you receive a script that's exactly 120 pages, you know that the script was longer and that the writer just edited it down to just meet that particular deadline. And it may not necessarily be a great script. It's almost makes me worry a little bit that maybe this is not going to be as good a read as
because it looks bloated already.
Because it's right there on 120. I mean, right down
where
at the
was
bottom
it?
of the page. Oh, they're just
there's no even resolution. It just cuts out. I found lately with the indie film industry, 86 to 106 tends to be kind of the sweet spot right now. If you've got like a horror or a scary movie, you can roll in at about 86 pages.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
especially horror.
Yeah, they can go light.
And for an independent film, 86, I can see that because it's just less to shoot.
Yeah.
Fewer production costs.
Yeah, saving on the budget. Absolutely. Yeah. So one trend I've noticed is the bolding of slug lines. I've seen that. And I think it's an interesting visual. It's kind of cool, but I think it works in specific genres.
I've seen it as a fad, and I've wondered, is this going to continue?
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it. People want to set apart those master scene headings, and it's like this is a new chapter in my story and so forth. It's not something that I feel like must be done, and I wouldn't worry about it if you are a person listening to this podcast and are just starting out. It's nothing to worry about right now. Focus on the story, do the basic formatting, make sure that's correct, but you can do it if you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, you're 100% right. I mean, if you're just starting out, getting that format down is important. If you get a well formatted script, you're already launched into top 20, 30% of screenplays if it just even reads properly.
Yes. Well, that's true.
Yeah. But as far as bolding scripts go, what I've noticed is if it is like a horror genre, or if it's a very impactful script like action, I think bolding the slug line looks pretty good. But if it is like a Sleepless in Seattle or a romantic comedy, maybe a little too a bit abrasive when you're reading it. But that's just my own 2 cents.
Yeah, I've heard readers say 2 different things.
Really?
A couple of readers told me, and I'm talking about readers who are reading for producers out there.
Right.
Yeah, they said, interrupts the flow for me. It kind of stops me. And others have said, oh, it helps me see we're coming to the end of a scene. And, so I've heard 2 different reactions.
Yeah. Cause it's still of a newer thing, and people are still trying to figure out if they like it, but it sounds like it's quite personal. All right. So let's see, you are teaching at Script University, right? So you do a formatting class for them. Is that correct?
I do a formatting class for them. I teach for them and also at my own website.
And that's keepwriting.com.
Yes, keepwriting.com.
Very good. So what other kinds of, if I could pick your brain a little bit more, Dave.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you. So what other kinds of tips would you have? I mean, we've got that we want to focus on the writing. We want to focus on the characters in the story. We want to get all that. And actually this reminds me, because thinking of your book, I'm sorry, I'm skipping around on you, but
That's okay.
thinking of your book, one thing that always settled to me was keeping your voice consistent. So if you're going to write a flashback in a particular manner, you know, because there's like 50 ways to do them, but if you're going to do it one way, keep it consistent. So that way, even if it isn't totally standard, at least it makes sense. And I was wondering if you could just kind of elaborate on that for me.
Okay. Consistent is one word. The other word is clear.
Okay.
Be clear and consistent in how you're doing things, and that'll pay off for you to some extent. But
yeah,
clarity is so important with readers reading fast. You can't afford to lose or confuse a reader. And what just popped into my mind when I said that is my own personal little bias. When I see on page 1, a man walks into the room, and then on page 7, we finally name him. You know, make it easy on your reader. Name your characters at the moment they first appear in the screenplay, unless you have a dramatic purpose for not doing that.
Right. And that is so true. I actually just worked on a script for a student that there's like 3 named characters, and then everything else is just like the mailman. And it's so much more than just like consistency and clarity, but also if that script gets sold, right? If it gets made, that actor would love to have a credit as a named character and not just be guy number 3, you know? So absolutely, that's very true.
That's true. Now, if you have a lot of characters, you may have to use labels for some of your characters, but rather than guy number 1, guy number 2, and guy number 3, characterize them. Nervous guy, snotty man, you know, chubby lady, whatever. I mean, you want to color every character. You want to everyone deserves some characterization, even if they're a very minor character.
That's brilliant tip.
Don't forget to do that. And that's one thing I see a lot in scripts of developing writers, is characters that are pretty flat and are simply not well characterized. They're not standing out. You want to, if you have 2 characters that are together a lot, it's usually best to contrast them. Because defining one helps define the other. They define each other because they're so different from each other.
That's true.
Shakespeare used to do this with all of his central characters have a foil, we call them. So it helps define who that central character is. So don't be afraid to provide an adjective or 2 that describes the personality of your character when you introduce the character. It's okay to do that. So we have a sense, you know, this person's a control freak or whatever they are like. You know?
That's
one of my favorite introductions of a character. Came from a client. She wrote, Tina, 46, dresses too young for her age and gets away with it. I thought, okay, I got Tina. That helps me understand something about Tina.
No, that's great.
And that's part of entertaining your reader and helping them enjoy the read, so that they are going to, you know, recommend you in their coverage.
I mean, it adds to the world building factor. It makes it interesting, not just using generic characters. I totally agree with you. And see, now you're rolling me into Dave. You're rolling me into character description. right?
Okay.
Because the big thing here, right? The big thing we had with the Me Too movement, which was great. It really highlighted a big flaw in the industry where people would write, you know, if it was Tina, we could say Tina 30s blonde bombshell, right?
Oh,
And that was a big issue. And you know, looking at it, that really was a prevalent issue. Like
yeah.
everywhere you read it, it was always about how hot or attractive physically were. And I'm starting to see that finally trend away, and you're getting to more of like you said, nervous control freak, almost like character uh
And personality.
yeah, personality
Yeah,
of the character.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that's exactly right. And we have to remember as writers that our characters are more than their bodies.
Hmm.
My favorite characterization in beginning screenplays, I don't know how to put this, but I see this so often that I'm almost waiting for it when I read. And that is the male lead will be ruggedly handsome. And the female lead will be beautiful but doesn't know it.
Oh, wow.
If you are using those descriptions, I would try for something different, because we see them over and over again
Yeah.
in screenplays that we read.
Had the pleasure of being interviewing Jay Moore once, and he played a character on Jerry Maguire, and we were just talking about it, and he told me, you know, the character, when he went in for the table read, the character had one word for the character description, and it was unctuous, and I was like, that is brilliant. I mean, just one, but that totally tells you who that character is.
Yeah.
One simple word. He said, I knew automatically how to play this character. He went in, did it, got the part. And when you see him in Jerry Maguire, you're like, yeah, that's an unctuous guy. And so, yeah, you can be, there is power in just a few words there.
Part of screenwriting is saying as much as you can with as few words as you can.
Yep.
Now, the exception is in dramatic moments and emotional moments where we do want to expand and dramatize the drama and milk the emotion and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But generally speaking, how can I say this with just a few words or with just one word, which was a great example you gave.
Yeah, absolutely. I try and strive in my own writing when I'm working with students as well, is just to write like a Spartan. You know, how can I really make this efficient but powerful? And then dragging out those dramatic moments are always fun, right? Because we get to emotionally manipulate the reader, and that's always an amazing ability. Yep.
And they should be dramatized. I read in one script, a gun battle ensues, Martinelli is killed. I'm going,
oh no.
This should be 3 or 4 pages. Give me the gun battle.
Give me something. Give me the highlights.
We don't need every blow. I mean, every shot and so forth. Yeah. But we do need to visualize what we're saying. So just don't say they duke it out and Jim wins.
That's the famous thing that George Lucas did, though, in one of the Star Wars films. He put they fight. And then it was like the rest of it's up to the choreographer. We don't want to be that Spartan with it.
Exactly.
We want,
exactly right.
I would say, I mean, I always preach that you want to get the highlights, but you don't want to over choreograph. I'm assuming
exactly.
We
need to be enough to visualize what kind of fight it is, or what's happening. One of my favorite action scenes is actually from The Princess Bride, and I'm referring to the script.
Okay.
The Princess Bride, and it's the sword fight with the Spaniard.
Okay.
And there's a couple of things I like about it. One is that they're not shouting epithets like we so often see. They're complimenting each other throughout this to the death duel.
Yeah.
And so forth. But in William Goldman's descriptions, he describes this blow and that blow, and then he'll give a summary description. He feints, he swings, but nothing works as he's forced back against the cliffs of insanity, something like that. So there's kind of a summary description, but you get some of the blows, but he's not trying to choreograph the entire sword fight.
No, just highlight it a little bit. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. Again, that refers to the theater of the mind. How do we get these people to really start to visualize the script? Absolutely.
Exactly.
Dave, I think I could probably talk to you all night.
Well, this is fun.
Yeah, thank you. So keepwriting.com is your website. And Dave's available on there. He also teaches at Script University, and you're teaching formatting class.
Yes.
And I'm on Script University as well. I teach a rewriting class. And then the Screenwriters Bible it's a foundation, it's a classic. And I love that you keep updating, and it's such a great read.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, another issue I see so often in screenplays is obvious exposition. And sometimes this is with a voiceover narration on page 1 that's almost as long as page 1.
Oof.
And it's just laying down, here's the stuff that you need to know. But also, and it's usually in the first 10 pages of the script, we have characters telling each other things they already know.
Yes.
You know, for example, oh, how long have we been married, darling? Oh, 10 years. Remember our honeymoon? Where was it? Oh, yeah, in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And that's just, they're not talking to themselves.
No.
They're talking to the audience. So you want to make sure in your dialogue, and particularly your early dialogue, that the exposition is emerging naturally into the conversations. You don't have to give us everything all at once.
I agree with you 100%. I find when working with students, dialogue is the most difficult thing for them to teach and to understand and to get to. And it just gets down to, how do people talk? Because people don't speak in complete sentences. People use abbreviations. No. Other people get cut off by someone else. I mean, there's so much dialogue. No people speak the same. You know, if you're frustrated, you have a different tone, and you'll use different type of language. And I always find dialogue is kind of like that last step for writers to really.
It's the last thing to come, and you know, characters interrupt each other, and characters are often on two different trains of thought.
Yep.
My favorite example of that is those first 8 pages of Social Network that Aaron Sorkin wrote, where the two characters are often in 2 different trains of thought, and it's handled beautifully. It's just worth looking at that.
Yeah, the Social Network is a classic, but I mean it's Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah.
You know,
he's
like,
good.
Yeah,
he's
if you
good.
could point out West Wing, you could the Steve Jobs film. They're all.
But I know he labors over it. It's not like he sits down and writes 8 pages and he's done.
Oh,
he labors over it.
I guarantee you, Aaron Sorkin's first draft is his worst draft. You know, we all have that terrible first draft, and then I always say the magic is in the rewrite. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree with you. And getting into exposition, you know, this is a visual medium, but it's written. That's the tricky part. And I always tell everybody, screenwriting is the most difficult literary art there is, because you can cheat in other stuff. Screenwriting, there is no cheating.
There is no.
Yeah.
And novelists who think it's going to be easy, they find out they can't include internal dialogue. And that's one of the things that makes a novel work, but you can't do it in a screenplay.
You can't.
You can't voice over a character's thoughts unless it's a broad comedy, you know, or something.
Well, you're getting into what's the big joke with the old Dune movie, right? Everybody's always talking in their brain. And you go, what the hell's going on? So yeah, that's totally it. Yeah, you can't do it. And the one thing I've noticed, novelists do that. And then when I'm working with them, I go like, this is not filmable. You have to have things that we can see on screen. I can't see inside the guy's mind.
That's right.
I can't, you know, look at his neurons firing and trying to express what his inner thoughts are. So yeah, we have to show it.
So true. So true.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's hit this up then, since I've got you. So let's talk about subtext.
Well, subtext, that's also one of the last things to come. And what I mean by that is, we were just talking about Aaron Sorkin.
Right.
And his first draft that you were talking about probably does not contain very much subtext. Normally you want to get down, you know, what the character's saying, and then you want to figure out, how can they say this in a different way? How can they imply the meaning that you want, and
Yep.
so that we have this underlying subtext. Not that
Yeah.
we have to have subtext in every speech, of course,
No. Yeah.
but we need it's so much more interesting when a character is beating around the bush or innuendo or what have you. That is more interesting than just coming straight out and saying something. So,
yeah.
I mean, even as simple as "here's looking at you, kid," is just more
Perfect.
interesting than "I
It
love you."
is. It
It's
is.
just
I gotta tell you, Dave, I've been married 20 years, and I love it when my wife tells me exactly how she feels, so I don't have to do any kind of like deep research into it. And I know, when I've frustrated her, and she tells me, "Hey, I'm frustrated." I love that, but we don't want to see that on screen. We don't want people telling us their feelings. We don't want people saying exactly how they feel. We want to beat around the bush because that's interesting. It's interesting to listen to. It gives the character, the actor some meat to work with the character instead of just trying to sell a bad line. And yeah, the subtext is there, and it is some of the last things to do. But one thing I've noticed with subtext, at least what I try and teach, is if you're working with it, you want to be trying to say 2 or 3 things at the same time to really get that depth in there.
oh, that's good advice.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
So